Hello, crafty friends. How are you today? My name is Jessie, and this is Mislaid Pages. If you're new here, welcome. I'm happy to have you. If you are returning, thanks so much for checking this out. I love having you here. This is going to be a cross-stitch related video. I have actually had a number of people ask how to use silks. I do talk about dinky dye silks a lot on the channel. I do have dinky dye silks and a Silk of the Month club available in the Etsy shop, and a lot of folks are really intimidated by silks because one, they look very different from DMC and other cotton flosses, and two, they're just not really sure how you use silks compared to how you use cotton floss. Well, the good news is that silks are actually, you use them pretty much exactly the same as the way that you would use DMC floss. And now when I say this, I do have to point out that these are stranded silks. There are some silks out there that are different. They do not have multiple strands, and this video is not about those kinds of silks. This video is specifically about stranded silks, and even more specifically than that, 6 stranded silks. So these are stranded just like your DMC flosses are. They have 6 individual strands that are sort of wound together to create a thicker piece of cord that is your floss, and then they are twisted together to make it look all pretty like this. So, excuse me, when you get dinky dyes, in this particular pack, just to plug the shop a little bit, this was December's Silk of the Month pack that I'm going to be using for my demonstration today. I do have some extras of these as of the posting of this video, and they should be in the shop. If they're not in the shop, give me a heads up, because I should have these listed. I have a few packs of this left, as well as January. Those should be in the shop or will be in the shop very shortly. Excuse me. In addition to your silks, you're going to want a couple other things just to make life a little bit easier. So let's say that these are the 4 colors I'm going to use for my particular project, and I want to keep them together. I've got a little ring that I'm going to hook them onto when we're done. I've got a hole punch to create a hole to put them on the ring, and I have a pair of scissors. And that's really all you need to use silk flosses. I will get a needle as well, because there's something I want to show you once I get this all done. So this is what dinky dyes look like when you get them. And a lot of folks are like, how do I even use this? Like, what what do I even do with this? Because you're used to that DMC little floss where you just kind of yank one side and you get however much floss you need. Well, these are actually going to be much easier than even that once we get done with it. So let's start with actually, let's do this pink one because I think it's probably easiest to see on camera. I'm just going to put those others to the side. So the first thing you'll notice here is that, and actually I just realized I have the wrong punch. Hold on just a second. Okay, the punch I actually want is this one. This is maybe a 1/2 inch round punch, and I'll show you why we need that shortly. So you're going to notice here on your dinky dyes that it is tied with a little teeny knot right onto the card there, and this card gives you the color number, the color name, all that sort of stuff. You have a couple of options for how to get it off this card. Now, if you want to, you can just cut this. I tend to like to save as much of the silk as possible because they're kind of expensive, and so I don't want to cut it. I am just going to very gently ease this knot apart. And if you're having trouble with it, you can kind of see that I have some nails right now, so that's helping me out. But if you're having trouble with it, you can use a needle to kind of wedge in there and pull that apart. But as you can see, you just kind of ease it out there, and then the second knot you can just pull apart. So we're going to set the card aside for just a moment. This is still knotted together, if you can see. Let me focus a little bit. So this is still knotted together, and we're just going to ease that knot apart. That first knot is generally the hardest. The rest of them usually come apart pretty easily, and sometimes you can actually get between the twist there and just pull it. Okay, we're going to unravel it. Just straighten that all the way out. And then, it's usually easier if you come from the other end. You just want to kind of separate this out so that it's one round. If you could see that. I can't get far enough away from the camera. Okay, so now we have a big loop. What I usually do is I will leave this last knot tied for a little bit while I prepare the little card. So now we're going to take our Dinky Dies card, and I use this to make sure that I keep the number and the name. I will use this card to put my floss back onto, my silk floss. And so now is where the hole punch comes in. I'm just going to punch a hole in the bottom of the card, just like that. So now I have a place to thread my floss. And I'm going to take the end that does not have the knot, and I'm just going to loop it over and then pull the other side through. So a lot of times when you buy over-dyed flosses or silk flosses or anything from sellers, you'll see them more like this. So they'll be sort of wrapped around the card, and then you have this long length here. Now what I like to do, and what makes life really super simple, is you take this, you get back to your original loop here, you're going to unknot this last knot here, just tease that right apart. Okay, so now we have those two. So the really fun thing is, what you can do is you can actually cut this end here, and then you'll have the perfect lengths for stitching, or at least the lengths that I find to be perfect. So this is probably not 18 inches, but it's a really good length for stitching with silk, because silks can get a little frayed or worn after stitching for a little while. So this is a really great length. So what I do is I just take this end here, and I'm just going to cut right through. Now don't be afraid. The first time I did it, I was so afraid, but this is exactly what you want to do. You want to cut it right here. And now let me get a needle, because I'm going to show you something super fun. Okay, y'all, this is the best part. This is the best part. So now I have a needle. I'm going to try to hold it up to the camera a little bit closer so you can see my needle. It's teeny tiny. I use a size 26 most of the time. So I'm just going to take this needle, and it doesn't really matter where you pull it from, but if you're going to need two strands, you kind of want to make sure that you're pulling both strands from the same section. So I just kind of pulled one section up a little bit so I can get better access to it. So this is one group of 6 strands that I've kind of pulled up here. And now I'm going to, with my needle, and I'm having trouble seeing because I don't have my good glasses on today. Okay, so now what I've done is I've just grabbed one little strand, and I'm just gently pulling, and the threads underneath my hand are bunching up a little bit, but that's totally fine. You're just going to gently pull until that strand comes free. And there you have an individual strand of silk. Now if you're working on a really high count fabric, something like 25 count or higher that you're going to use one strand on, you know, this is all you have to do. You pulled out one strand, you're good. If you're going to work on a lower count fabric, you'll want to pull another strand, and you do the same thing. However many strands you need, if I can get my needle up off the table again, however many strands you need, and like I say, you want to try to pull from the same group, only because if you're using 2 strands at one time, you kind of want them to have the same color fades. So these are going to be a little bit variegated, and you want to make sure that the 2 strands have basically the same patterning going on. So if you pull them from the same group of 6 strands, then both of your strands that you're using for your project are going to have basically the same variegation. So there we go. I've got my second strand. And now sometimes with this particular color, the color difference isn't really strong, but if the color difference is really strong, you just want to make sure that the ends match as you're pulling your 2 strands together. So these 2, and sometimes you can even tell by the bend of the threads. I don't know if you can see there. I'll try to hold it up. You can see that these bend in a slightly different way, so probably I want to match the other ends, just to make sure that I'm getting the same variegation when I start to stitch. So let me see if the other ends match a little bit better. And they do. They're twins. So, okay. So that's another way you can match up your ends if you're not sure about the colors. You can look at the shape that the ends are forming and put the ones that match together. So now we have 2 strands of silk, and we're ready to stitch just like we would with cotton. And then now you're just going to thread it through your needle, however you prefer to thread. I do the lick and stick method, which I know grosses some people out, so I'm not going to show you on camera that I've licked it, but... And then I just thread the needle. So now you're ready to go. You're ready to start stitching with silk, and it's really much easier than a lot of people think. It's super easy. You can stitch just like you can with cotton. The only other thing I will say is that you do want to make sure that your links are a little bit shorter maybe than you would use for cotton, just so that the silk doesn't get tangled or too frayed. But beyond that, I think you're going to find that silks are a joy to work with, especially dinky dyes. Dinky dyes are about my favorite silk to work with because they are so soft and so smooth, and they slide through the fabric like butter. It is amazing. So if you have been scared or afraid or intimidated by silks, I hope this has helped you out, and I hope you're going to go and try some silks right now. And as always, everybody remember to stay hydrated, make sure you take your meds if you need them, and remember that good enough is good enough. I'll see you all again next time.